In the urbanist community, I have found that bus rapid transit, or BRT for short, gets a lot of flack. Usually, it's seen as a compromise, or inefficient, or just as generally a worse version of a tram. However, I don't think that has to be the case for a BRT system, and there is a better way to use BRT, one which allows for a metro-style service with no transfers, one which can majorly expand the reach of the rapid transit network, and one where buses really are the best option. In short, I think that the right way for a BRT system to work is to think of BRT less as a mode, like metros or trams, and more as a form of infrastructure, which can be used to speed up buses. I think the proper use, specifically the proper service pattern, for the most extreme version of this infrastructure is to interline lots of suburban, intercity, and long distance buses in a major transit corridor or through a city center. And in this video, I'll explain why I think that's the proper use of BRT infrastructure, explore what BRT infrastructure could be used, talk about where BRT makes sense, and show some examples of cities that have done this before, including my hometown of Seattle. BRT is, by its very nature, extremely flexible and has a ton of different definitions. Buses, double-decker buses, and even trolley buses. A few things I won't require for BRT systems in this video include level boarding, off-board fare payment, special stations, or platform screen doors. I'm not kidding, some BRT systems have this. All this means that, for this video, the bare minimum for a BRT system is physically separated bus lanes. There are several forms of infrastructure, including BRT viaducts, such as the R-Net busway in Hoofddorp near Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, bus tunnels, such as Seattle's former transit tunnel, busways separated from highways, such as the El Monte busway in Los Angeles, or curb-separated bus lanes, such as the Viva BRT system in Toronto. Interlined corridors allow you to serve lots of destinations from a single corridor, and they combine frequencies from all the different routes serving those destinations, since all the different routes operate on the same corridor. This can end up creating a service with the frequency of a metro along the corridor itself, even if the headways of the individual routes are more appropriate for suburban or regional service, since the destination of the vehicle doesn't really matter. They can also make transfers much easier, since you could transfer to another route by waiting on the same platform or curb. This works with almost any transit mode, not just buses, but there is one major advantage that buses have, which is that they can run on just about any road without needing to build special infrastructure. This makes it easier for buses to go more places, and makes buses more resilient, since they can go around construction. Given all the disadvantages of BRT, which you can check out in the linked videos, BRT really only makes sense over a tram if you maximize the advantage of a bus's flexibility. What I want to argue is that this advantage does make BRT work in many places, namely in sprawling suburbs, where lots of different routes may be needed to reach everyone. So, has this model been used before, and more importantly, does it work? To the first question, yes. There's many examples around the world, but I'm going to focus on two: Seattle's 3rd Avenue Transit Mall and the Adelaide OBON, which will be acting kind of like opposites for this video. With Seattle's 3rd Avenue, it goes through a dense area, it's at grade, there's lots of street crossings, and I'll be using more personal experience than technical data. With the Adelaide OBON, it's surrounded by a park and low-density development. It's fully grade separated, has no street crossings except for some bus-only ramps, and I'll be relying on technical data and videos on the OBON for info, since I've never even been to Adelaide. We'll start with Seattle's 3rd Avenue. It uses 4 lanes to allow buses to pass each other, and allows car and truck traffic at night only. Buses often cross 3rd Avenue and turn off at many different points, giving lots of transfer opportunities. You can also transfer to the light rail at 2 stations on 3rd, Pioneer Square and University Street. From 3rd, someone can get to nearly everywhere else in Seattle, Third also has a few intercity routes. Buses operate on skip-stop service here, which does add a bit of a challenge, as you may need to ask the driver which stop on Third will serve the route you want to transfer to, and you may need to check the sign to see if you're at the right stop for your route. However, this makes the ride up and down Third faster, and the stops are close enough that, going downtown, you'll be in walking distance of your destination no matter which route you take. This also helps distribute riders among the stops, avoiding overcrowding at any individual stop. There's many cross streets on Third, which are a result of downtown Seattle's grid formation, and allow buses to easily access 99 and Seattle Center on the north side, and 4th Avenue and Jackson on the south side, with 4th connecting to I-5 and I-90. These cross streets do make buses liable to be caught at red lights, though, and 3rd Avenue is sorely underused by commuter buses that use the highways, which often end up stuck in traffic on 2nd, 4th, and 5th Avenues. The distribution of those buses, however, does speed up 3rd, but it does make transfers more difficult. This isn't that bad if everyone is only going to downtown, but with Seattle's extreme hills in downtown, transferring between the avenues can be a hike. Ultimately, though, it's incredibly helpful to get to and from downtown, and no matter where I am in Seattle, I can count on at least one route in the area going to Third. The other system we're going to look at is the OBON in Adelaide, Australia. The OBON is served by plenty of routes. Wikipedia lists 22 different routes, with 6 express variations of those routes, serving a total of 33 unique advertised destinations, plus downtown Adelaide, where the south end of the OBON terminates. There are also 14 other routes, one of them being a circle route that don't enter the OBON itself, but do serve the stops at surface level. The University of Washington has described the OBON as a success, showing an increase of riders on the busway at 5 times the speed of development of the corridor, and the University of South Australia notes that the OBON has more riders per kilometre than Adelaide's train network, with an average of 31,000 users per weekday. For comparison, this is about half of Sound Transit's daily ridership on Seattle's entire light rail system. However, ridership on the OBON is stymied, due to the decision to surround the OBON with a park and parking lots, rather than transit-oriented development, which pushes riders away from OBON stations. Public perception of the OBON seems to be rather positive, based on Reddit posts, and it is seen as a major time saver for riding the bus into the city, while being convenient for not needing to change from one mode of transit to another. However, there are also complaints that it should have been a train or tram line, and there are also complaints that the system only serves the northeastern suburbs, despite other suburbs having train service, ultimately showing that Adelaide seems to like the OBON, and it shows controversy over the Adelaide residents over whether the OBON is a lower form of transit than a train or tram line, though some seem to prefer the OBON over a train or tram line due to the one-seat ride. The OBON really makes sense for the kind of transit service Adelaide needs, due to its low-density suburbs, and given the example of Tea Tree Interchange, the only OBON stop where transit-oriented development was allowed, the OBON can absolutely work at encouraging TOD. The location of the OBON makes it very useful for its purpose, which is accelerating buses from the suburbs to the city center. Systems like Seattle's 3rd Avenue are good for city centers, where a lot of development needs to be served on a single corridor that isn't very long. This kind of system is extremely easy and cheap to implement, and is highly flexible if you need to make a lot of different connections. However, the lack of total separation from traffic does slow down buses on these transit malls, since they can encounter red lights. Systems like Adelaide's OBON work better for longer distances, and I think that the OBON itself works quite well for the structure it's set up as, connecting a city center to a surrounding suburban center, while providing offshoot service to suburbs around and beyond the corridor. I think that systems like the Adelaide OBON are great for connecting multiple centers in the same metro area, and this is something that the UK agrees with, as evidenced by their construction of multiple BRT systems like this, including the Lee-Salford-Manchester BRT, the Cambridgeshire Guided Busway, and the Luton-Dunstable Busway, which has a 24-hour airport bus. Ultimately, I think that the Adelaide OBON and Seattle's 3rd Avenue are great backbones for their transportation network, creating a corridor that acts as a hub for buses. These corridors offer easy, one seat ride access to lots of different places, and this gives them a natural advantage over transferring from trains. However, with systems like the OBON, there does come a distance and a density where you just need a train. Of course, if corridor width is not a big concern, it is possible to put in BRT right next to the railroad tracks, or you can place trains in a separate corridor to offer multiple transit options. BRT makes a lot of sense in sprawling North American and oceanic cities, where there's lots of low density suburbs to be served by buses, and it works great as a hub corridor for a city's bus network, but it's ultimately not a replacement for proper metro or rail systems, and can't really take the place of a tram. Thanks for watching.